So while most of you have probably not seen my face before, this gentleman over here might be a little bit familiar to you. I'm really honored to be able to spend a little bit of time here on stage with Mayor Eric Garcetti, who is the fourth generation Angelino. Did I say that right? Angelino?
You did, Angelino.
Good.
Angelino.
And the 42nd mayor of Los Angeles. Born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, Mayor Garcetti is the son of public servants, gotta love that, and the grandson and great-grandson of immigrants from Mexico and Eastern Europe. Now, his team sent over some of the accomplishments and accolades of his administration, and I looked at that and I was like, well, that's gonna take all of the time that we have here on stage. So I took the moderator's prerogative and picked out the one that I found the most interesting from the list. So, under Mayor Garcetti's leadership, LA has been rated the nation's best-run city by the Bloomberg What Works Cities Initiative and has become the #1 solar energy city in America.
Well, LA.
And before we dive in a little bit more to get an understanding of how the mayor is focused on why we are here today, making sure that South LA has an opportunity to build up a really strong tech ecosystem, I just want to take a moment and say I like snuck in and checked out this room a little bit before getting on stage here, and I love what I am seeing here. All of you dedicated to making sure we're supporting entrepreneurs yourself, and wherever that mom with an infant is, like huge kudos to you because entrepreneurs look like anyone from everywhere and you own it.
Babies welcome.
Yes. So if you are here, if that baby cries, don't you worry about leaving. Like we can handle that. I have a 2-year-old and he still cries. So let's start off with general understanding of what's happening here. What is the city of LA doing, particularly focused in South LA, to promote startup growth?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you here in the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, and I couldn't be more excited and energized by what we're talking about because it cuts to the heart of, I think, what my philosophy has been in my administration, which is let's invest in key industries. So technology has been a focus since I became your mayor, and we're seeing tech jobs grow faster in the city than any big city in America. Second is to build out infrastructure, and that infrastructure may be everything from internet connectivity, and Verizon just announced we'll be the first big city to have 5G in the country, and what that does for commerce, and what that does for smart apps, and what that does for a smart city. But third, to make sure nobody is left behind while we do those first two things. So create jobs, create the infrastructure to create even more economic prosperity, and make sure it's coming from every zip code. And so we are very intentional with our public policy from the beginning, whether it was focusing on getting jobs and training to zip codes that are often overlooked, getting AP computer science courses, which we have now in a higher density than even San Francisco, looking at Girls Who Code, looking at South LA entities, looking at places which are near and dear to me. My father's from South LA. My grandfather was an entrepreneur down the street, and by an entrepreneur, I mean he was an immigrant who opened up a barber shop. And I know what it means, and one of my lines is always that the next Mark Zuckerberg or maybe Steve Case is probably an African-American girl growing up right here in South Los Angeles, or an immigrant, Latino youth who is someplace in Boyle Heights or in Pacoima. We have to make sure that not only the industry reflects us, but that it doesn't leave those stories, that brilliance out. And LA is a place that we've just tried to make sure that everybody feels like they belong, and then we give them the tools. So there's a lot of things I could list. We've done partnerships downtown on incubating space for new folks who are starting up, primarily young people of color who are starting tech companies. We're partnering with existing groups because I don't think we should always reinvent the wheel, and so a lot of folks that are here know who you are, but we've partnered to make sure we bring resources. And then I was probably proudest of our second year of our Tech Jobs Fair, which we had in South LA over at the Reef by LA Trade Tech College. We hope to have maybe a couple thousand job applicants and a couple dozen companies. We had almost 250 companies, 15,000 job applicants, and they look like this room does today. It's not the Mad Men demographic in flip-flops, which unfortunately Silicon Valley can look too much like. It was the LA demographic, and it made me very proud knowing that the future of LA and the future of tech was going to look like this global city.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about the next Mark Zuckerberg, the next Steve Case. Appreciate that shout out. Sure. And, you know, so much of what we've been working on at the Case Foundation is to highlight the fact that that next Mark Zuckerberg probably has already founded a company today. Yes. Like, there is probably that African-American woman who is building something right now, who is one of those only 36 women who have raised $1 million or more in venture capital, who is making it happen, you know, working around however she can to make sure she gets access to that. I really feel like that pipeline isn't a problem. Like, those entrepreneurs exist. They are here. And honestly, like, looking around at you all and the students that were here this morning, like, we have the pipeline in the room right here. So what do we do to answer some of those questions that investors say, you know, and you know, not the ones that we've already heard from today, and, you know, not a lot of the ones that I've heard from here in LA, but just this idea of, oh, well, those entrepreneurs don't exist. I don't know where to find them. It's a pipeline problem. How do we match up the pipeline that's here today with the investors?
Well, first we have to call BS on that, because that's just not the case. We know that here. And I don't know why we even have to reiterate that this is difficult work. I'll just talk about, I try to practice what I preach. So I start with, I'm a CEO of your city. There's 37 departments, the biggest port in America, the second biggest police department, the second busiest airport, the largest municipal utility. I mean, the list goes on and on. Our metro system, I just came from our board meeting, is building 15 rail lines, thanks to all of you who voted for Measure M, the most any city in America has ever done. And when I came in, let's just take gender and people of color for a moment. Our commissioners who oversee those departments are citizens who volunteer their time. Immense responsibility, incredible opportunities. It's like a second unpaid job on top of your job. And within the first 6 months, I made sure that it reflected the diversity of people of color, and for the first time was over 50% women in 6 months. And when I go into corporations and they're like, well, government moves really slow. If government can do that in 6 months, why do we have single digits when it comes to people of color on your board? Why is it single digits of CEOs and C-suite women? And all of us as investors, whether it's the city's, for instance, pension fund, should be saying no to whatever board, no matter how great they are. Because I had to say thank you to a lot of really great men who had been serving on these commissions, but I said, thank you for your service, it's time to make sure others get that opportunity. It may be a difficult conversation to have, but they understood. We should be voting no against those slates. We should be not investing in those companies. We should be using the power that we have to say, come on, this isn't tough. If government could do it in 6 months, you could do it in 3. And so that's first and foremost. So we need to make sure that people in control look like us. Second is, absolutely. Second is we have to make sure, too, that we are not suddenly waking up to this and saying, oh, I'm supposed to fix this on the dime. Remember Oscars, you know, So White, and this year with Me Too and Time's Up. So we've been investing in the entertainment space, also tech-related, but in the entertainment space to create something called the Evolve Entertainment Fund. So there is a youth jobs program for young people in LA. When I started, there was 5,000 jobs given to young people in the summertime, paid internships. We have that up to 17,000 now. But the last 2 or 3 years, even though I'd sit down with studios and others who'd say, yeah, we really want to have, you know, more people of color, we're sensitive to what the Oscars were talking about or people were criticizing, we had 5 jobs in the entertainment industry of those 17,000. 5. Thank you to the Jim Henson Company. Watch more Muppets. But other than that, we realized unless we were a little bit more aggressive about this, it wasn't going to happen. So we brought together the unions, the studios, Hollywood Reporter and Variety, a lot of folks to make specific commitments and kind of in a room like this, launch this. And this summer there'll be 250 paid internships for primarily youth of color and young women to go into the entertainment industry. So if you're not investing in this on the front end, you can complain on the back end. And there is something true to it. It's not that we're not out there. It's that we don't have the network, right? It's all about social capital. But if we create, imagine 5 years from now that we're going to have, because the numbers will go up each year, but let's say 2,000 young people who will go through the entertainment industry and know each other and be networked with each other, they're all going to be bosses, right? They're going to be able to run things. And so we have to be intentional not just about opening up the education opportunities, putting people in charge, but creating the network, that social network of folks who can spend that capital. Like, oh, I know a guy in South LA, you know, I know Nipsey Hussle's like got this, you know, Revolution clothing store, and there's an app that Idris made, and he should make your app to change what you're doing over there in Shinola store at the Grove. Because once that's in place, that becomes the network that people tap into.
Yeah, and I think that that's so powerful. You know, it's interesting when we're in rooms with entrepreneurs and we ask the question, you know, what's the thing that you need most? You know, yeah, they say, oh, we need more financial capital, but more and more the conversation has moved to, yeah, we need that capital. You know, entrepreneurs need to raise rounds, like they need to have that money to allow them to grow. But I also need that social capital. I need a mentor. I need a network. I need to know who to pick up and call. Like, who's done this before? What are my role models in this space?
And there's a lot of wealthy people of color in this town because of the entertainment industry. But we also have to make sure that they're investing money that goes back in the community. Oftentimes, money managers and others will take over when you have that sort of wealth, and they'll be like, well, let me put it into these venture capital funds, this private equity, when we should be creating those pools right here. We're trying to do that with your money, the City of LA's pension money. We're trying to make sure that it invests in communities right here and in startups right here. But we need to, I think we could tap so much wealth in here where people want to do that, but it'll take some leaders, I think, in the entertainment sector, in the tech sector, who will say, we want to put this into our people. And there's great success stories like Me Too, which is an amazing network. Beatriz Acevedo started. They're in the old downtown factory area where American Apparel was. You know, it's kind of Latino themed, but it's all people of color. You go into that workplace, it's majority women. It's, you know, you've got African Americans, Latinos, Asian Pacific Islanders, Native folks that are there, and they're creating amazing content. And unlike YouTube, which is going to give you a percentage, but you know, maybe 10, 20%, they're doing 50-50 share with all the creators. And so they're getting like the best content. Me Too, if you don't know, it's MITU. And that's the kind of stuff that's coming out of LA right now that is really exciting to see and that we need to see more of.
So you've already mentioned just in this conversation, I think 3 or 4 different industries that are really vibrant here in LA. And it's interesting because when we look across cities at, you know, what their entrepreneurship ecosystems are building up, a lot of times cities either naturally or through selection kind of pick 1 to 2 tracks. Like, we want to be known for this, we want to be known for that. But I was, you know, when I was doing a little bit of my homework for this, I came across a report that Amplify did on the 2017 venture activity here, and they had a pie chart that was looking at, you know, how it was distributed by industry. It was the most balanced pie chart I've ever seen, where it was like 10 different industries that all had about equal market share. What makes LA special around that? And if I can ask, is there a particular industry that you think is just really going gangbusters?
Well, I love that we have this balanced meal here in Los Angeles because we're not a one-industry town. I mean, I think people from the outside think we're an entertainment town. Hollywood was only top 10 in the last decade, top 10. So, you know, we have trade, we have tourism, we have technology in broad sense. And our technology sector, I aim to do 2 things: to make it more diverse, literally the people, but also we know it's more diverse in the content of technology. So you have aerospace technology. When we were at that job fair, you had aerospace technology, you had food technology, you had biotechnology, you had green tech, so green technology, you had digital technology, you had entertainment technology, you had video game technology, you had virtual reality technology. And that's a really attractive thing to a workforce because you don't have to say, oh, I'm going to spend my whole life just in digital technology. I can go from, you know, working at JPL. Like, I met one of the people working at the Boring Company for Elon Musk, and he was an aerospace engineer, never did anything in construction, and now he's in construction technology. They're seeking to make times 10 faster a boring machine underground that will create tunnels for the transportation system he wants. But, you know, somebody who does that tunneling for Metro, our subway system, they will probably double in the first year with somebody who had no background in construction ever, but was a brilliant aerospace engineer. So it's a very attractive city, I think, and there's no one place that is taking off more than others. I do love that biotech is really consolidating here. San Diego and San Francisco have had that reputation. We now have as many jobs as either one of them, and we're trying to bring that together because we have amazing hospitals and a lot of breakthrough work. Cedars-Sinai wanted to do an incubator. They had more than 50 times more companies than space come forward to them. And that's something natural here in South LA as well. UCLA Harbor Gateway is a place we're going to be doing incubating of biotech companies. And I think also kind of the digital technology stuff here is a little richer because it's content-based rather than just the technology itself. So I would say our narrative technology will always guide this town of the best storytellers in the world.
which is also hitting on, one of the trends in tech is that, there almost isn't a tech industry anymore, right? Everything is tech enabled.
What isn't tech?
Right, exactly.
I should have said one other thing. One is transportation technology. We're going to make LA the transportation technology capital of the world. So last week we had Uber Elevate here, which was all the vertical takeoff and landing companies. We will be one of the first 3 cities in the world with Dubai and Dallas to test that out, and I'll test it myself, so don't worry. I know what you're thinking, but I think we will have vertical takeoff and landing vehicles faster here than we even have an interconnected autonomous vehicle on the terrestrial space. We have, $120 billion we're spending on new transportation. The Boring Company, we will see a transportation revolution, and I just came from, we're going to found in South LA, I and Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas have been working with Phil Washington, who heads up our metro, to have the first academy in the Western United States, public school for kids to have an opportunity to go into transportation careers. So we will take foster youth, we will take homeless youth, we will take, within 6 zip codes around where this is, because it'll be right by the 110 freeway here in South LA. We will see the most diverse group of, I think, transportation engineers brought up from an early age to kind of change the world.
Oh, that's so interesting. So it'd be really easy to spend this entire time talking about what makes LA special, right? There's so many different ways that we can slice and dice that. A lot of incredible activity, a lot of incredible entrepreneurs building things right now. But I don't want people to leave this room saying, LA's figured it all out, it's perfect. If we could just spend a moment, what do you think is missing out of the LA ecosystem? What else needs to happen here to either keep this momentum going or to really make sure that it's solidified as a key part of LA?
I think we need to embrace this more as a value than as an initiative. We need to, I think, incubate the idea that technology is a value across our education system, across all of our job training, and across our capital access. Instead of it being a place, traditionally a smaller city would be like, okay, here's the cluster where we will put this. We're in the final, the only West Coast city to make it to the finals for Amazon HQ2. And, it's kind of a natural here. We're a big enough place that 50,000 jobs wouldn't do the displacement of other places. We have public transportation. We've got more engineers graduating from our universities than any city in America. There's aerospace, which I know Jeff Bezos likes. He has a house here already. We've got the port if you want to pick goods up. And I'm doing the whole Amazon pitch.
You see, he's been practicing. He's like, no, this is why.
But the reason why I think that's attractive, too, is you have to show that this is something that breathes throughout the entire city. When George Lucas and his wife Melody Hobson were looking at where to bring the Lucas Museum, don't forget Solo opens tomorrow, but when they were looking at where to put that, we were competing in San Francisco, which had a very beautiful site, and it's where they're living, Chicago, where she's from, and we won with 2 ways. One was we said we'd get the job done here quickly, and 2, George said to me one day, he said, imagine that a young person will go into this museum, it's the biggest museum gift in American history, in Exposition Park in South LA, and looking at Star Wars or something, how we imagine getting into space. And then go to the other end of that same park and see at the California Science Center where we have the space shuttle and we're building the entire stack of a space shuttle with its rocket and boosters, how we actually did it. And to know that there are 10 high schools within walking distance, primarily students of color in lower income areas. That's where I want to be. And so I think LA's got to actually not look at this as, oh, we have to do this because it's a weakness. We need to pitch this as a strength. It will attract money. It will attract talent. It will attract capital because people are good people. And people have said all the right rhetoric in the industry.
I will say, I want to add on to that comment about the layout of the museum. At the Case Foundation, we have our Be Fearless campaign, which is really pushing for more risk-taking and acceptance of failure and learning from that and unlikely partnerships, which I think entrepreneurs already do so incredibly well, trying to translate that a bit to the social sector. And one of the stories that our CEO, Gene Case, tells quite often is around the moonshot and how when President Kennedy said, we are going to go to the moon and back, that we didn't have the technology, we didn't even have the materials to make the things we needed to actually go to space. They didn't have the mathematical ability to calculate how fast they needed to go to be able to get there and come back. And so sometimes it takes just saying, we're going to completely change the world. And we'll figure it out along the way. And it's important to figure it out and not just kind of run at things willy-nilly. But I think there's a lot of power to that and showing people how big they can dream and that there are people around them, especially here in this community, who can really come about that.
And think about it here in LA. Like, what are our moonshots? We've got 10 years till the Olympics will be here for a third time, the Paralympics for a first time. Who do we want to be? What city do we want to be? What world do we want to see? Imagine a city where our moonshot is to end traffic once and for all, the soul-crushing traffic, to get rid of homelessness because we figure out a cheaper and better and quicker way to build housing units that are affordable to people, and revolutionize education so that, I came back from the largest university in the country this weekend. I gave the commencement address, Southern New Hampshire University, which you've probably all seen the ads. They graduate 19,000 people, a nonprofit, because they have gone online and they've realized education shouldn't be exceptional because you hide it from people. It's like love. The more you share, it's an inexhaustible resource. And we talked about maybe we could make this the first city in America where we made college free with them through all of our public libraries. So let's revolutionize education. That's a moonshot for all of us to work on with technology. End homelessness, and let's fix traffic. Those are three that I'd put out to everybody. Let's get to work.
So to close, one sentence answer. They're actually going to turn the lights off for us. What is one sentence of advice you have for the entrepreneurs here in the room today?
It's a run-on sentence. Be fearless, stay humble, learn to listen, and lead with love.
I love it. I also captured a bit of homework for you all in the room here today. So things that you can actually take away from this that either you can do or you can challenge the people in your community to do. All of those things that Mayor Garcetti just said, as well as diversify your board and your leadership. Look who is alongside of you and use that as a way to get different perspectives. If you're an entrepreneur who's had an exit, or if you're an investor, invest at home. The power of understanding your community and the people who are building things is immense. And then finally, I'll leave you with dream big. There's lots of social problems to challenge starting here at home and around the world, and you all are the ones who are going to do it. So huge thank you to Mayor Garcetti. Thank you to all of you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.